All right. So what I'm gonna be trying to do today is trying to trace my lineage all the way back to King David, the biblical figure in the Tanakh of the Jewish people. So essentially, it's I think it's pretty much no facts that any descendants of a famous person that spans at least, well, I guess 1,000, 2,000 years. Like if the person that you're trying to find a connection to lived like 1,000, 2,000 years ago, pretty much like during the antiquity, for example, then there's a very, very high chance that they are your ancestors, just because of the fact that their descendants marry, like for the male line descendants, it's obviously very much limited. But for the female line descendants, for example, if the ancestor of yours has a lot of children, both daughters and sons, and then the sons even have more daughters, and then they married off into the families of the surrounding sort of like nobility in the kingdom, and also those families migrate out of the center of origin of ancestral dissemination, then you can see a lot of cases of people carrying the genes further and further away from the place where they're supposed to be at. So not only are Jewish people descendants of King David, but there are also others, a lot of Gentiles out there who are descendants of King David. If you can find a line, that is. Well, if even without the line, the lineage, then you can still pretty much say that maybe I'm connected to him. There's like a very medium chance, I would say. But if you find the lineage to it, then the more the better. The more proof, or the more you have, the more the better. So just me all the way down here in the bottom of the tree, and everything on the left side is gonna be the male line, the male ancestor. So on my left side is my father, and you can see that everything on the left side is essentially just paternal ancestors, and also if it goes in a straight line, then it's all gonna be the same people from the same family, all male members in a straight line going up. So that's my convention for making this chart. So here's me all the way down. Left side is my father, right side is my mother. And then you see that it goes straight up to my grandfather, and then it splits off into two different branches. Left side, my great grandfather, right side, my great grandmother. And the thing is that I'm just gonna blur these names, and gonna leave the name of these people out because they are still alive, pretty much, and just to protect the privacy of the person, which is me in this case. So if you trace the two important figures here in my most recent ancestors are my great grandfather and my great grandmother, and they all lived in the same province. They used to well live in the same province. Actually, my great grandfather was from Hanoi, but his mother was from Namding province, and my great grandmother, all of her ancestors, actually no, her father was from Taiping, but her mother was also from Namding province, so they all have connection back to Namding, and they're actually distant cousins of each other in a way that will show later on how it's connected. Now I'll just go through my great grandfather's life first. So his father's on the left side is a person from Hanoi. His family's from Hanoi. They are pretty much Buddhist slash Confucian. They're just pretty much non-Christians. This is just a typical non-Christian family. And the same goes for the right side, my great grandfather's mother line. It goes back to Namding, and the family here is the Liu family, and then you can see the clan Ricker being shown here. That's my proof for the descent from the family that I'm talking about. So the Liu family, if you trace back two generations, you can see that there's a man on the left side, and there's a woman on the right side. So we're just gonna focus on that woman. She's also from the same village as the Liu family, but the importance is that her mother, a, a woman from the Chung family, was actually from the nearby village. So they're close to each other, but they're not from the same village, basically. And if you trace the lineage of this woman, Chung Tui Juan, all the way back, you trace like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I guess it's around 11 generations. Then they're following the line of the Chung clan in the village of Gakchu, which is also, if you notice the name, it's Hungak on one side and Gakchu on the other side. They all contain the same character for, well, I think it's for fortune, basically, in Sino Vietnamese, but it might mean that actually. So 10 generations back, and you come to this guy right here. I'm just gonna leave it there for now, and I'm going to focus on my great grandmother's line. So my great grandmother, her family was Christian. Her family was Catholic, and her father was a Buddhist, but he converted once he married her mother's, and her father is from Taiping, so we don't concern with that, but we're only concerned with her mother. So her mother is from the village of Kamha, which is, I have the record in Chinese characters right here, and she she descends from a family that's converted to Catholicism for, I guess, probably around 10 generations. But if you only count the male line, which is the line that passed down through fathers and sons, it's only been like 3 generations, 4 generations ever since they converted to Catholicism. And you go back to like 7 generations of the Huang family, and you come to Huang Huzek, who is the progenitor of the family, and he married a woman from the Cheng family in the nearby village. The nearby village is called Halang. So Halang is like it's like a village that's founded the longest. Yeah, it's the oldest village in the entire canton. So canton is like a group of villages, and a canton, the village is the most basic unit of social function back in monarchical Vietnam. So above that you see a canton, and above that you see a county, and above the county you see a prefecture. A county is also sometimes called a sub prefecture, and county head is also called a sub prefect in the French colonial system, but we don't concern with that here. So that's just the basic for that. They all live in the same sort of like clump of different villages that have the same sort of custom in the same like coastal area. So essentially, my let me zoom in here. See, no, I cannot zoom in. So the line of my great grandmother lives somewhere around here. If you can see on the map in Yingding towns, somewhere close to Yingding town in Haiho County. But the line of my great grandfather goes back to the town of Cactan, which is over here. They're very close to each other. They're like right next to each other, but they are from distinct counties. Well, they're from the same counties, but they belong to the same prefecture, I think. Yeah. Um, all right, so you go back there, and then you see that the woman from the Chung family actually goes like 7 generations back to this guy here. So these two guys, Chung Kung Zum on the left side of the ancestor of my great grandfather, and Chung Chat Lung on the right side of my great grandmother, they're brothers of each other. They belong to the same family. So while Chung Kung Zum stayed in his village because he was probably the elder in the family, his brother Zhang Chatlung migrated to the village of Halang and stayed there for generations after that. So they're actually brothers, and they descend from the same village, from the same lineage in Gakchu, and the Cheng clan in Gakchu actually traced their descent back to Prince Hung Dao of the Cheng dynasty, who was the military commander that defeated the Mongols twice. It's actually not 3 times, it's only twice. Because the earliest invasion in 1258, he was too young to be like the commander of the whole campaign. But for the ones after that in 1285 and 1287, then those twos, yeah, he rocked in those twos. So you trace the lineage far back enough, and you see you come to this prince right here, Prince Heng Hiu. Prince Heng Hiu was a son of Prince Heng Hiang, and Prince Heng Hiang was, I think, he was the youngest son of Prince Heng Dao, and that's how you came back to the first famous historical figure in the entire family tree, a military commander. And the thing is, that Prince Heng Dao belongs to the same royal family as the Cheng dynasty that ruled Vietnam during this time, but he's from like collateral branch. Like they share the same Y chromosome DNA, but they are from collateral branches. So the founding emperor's brother, is the father of Prince Hungdao. So he's not from the imperial family, but he's from like the well, close relative of the imperial family, I guess. So yeah. So but he married, actually he married his cousin. And this is what it kind of suck a bit here. So he actually married his cousin. In some context, they say that he married his aunt, but no, actually he married his cousin, first cousin. So it's less gross than like marrying an aunt, but still, it's your first cousin. So his first cousin was the princess, the daughter of the founding emperor of the Cheng dynasty. And so the story goes that the founding emperor of the Cheng dynasty, Taitong Emperor Cheng Kan, he um, he was actually an errand boy, sort of like a servant of the last emperor of the Li dynasty. The last emperor was actually an empress. So the last emperor of the Li dynasty here in Vietnam, the last emperor was a she. Yeah, he was a female, so should be better called like an empress. But she was only like 9 years old at the time that she became empress, like ruler of the whole nation. So yeah, and the Cheng family, they sent in like Cheng Kan as the servant boy for the empress, and then they liked each other, and then they marry. But then the thing is that she's barren. She only gave birth to a daughter, and then gave birth to like a stillborn son. So the emperor's uncle says that now she's no good, so divorce her and then marry her sister, which is really, yeah, which is really kind of messed up. And then she later married somebody else. But the only product of that marriage, the only child of that marriage is a daughter, and that daughter is the wife of Prince Hengdao. So here, that you go back to the line, the lineage of the Li dynasty nobility. So Empress Chuhua was the last emperor of the Li dynasty, the ninth one. And if you go back around 8 generations more, go to the founding emperor of the Li dynasty here. It's all recorded in this step. It's all recorded in the complete annal of Dai Viet. I think it might be the most complete historical record of Vietnam during this period. So there's nothing further than that you can trace from, but it's very credible source. So I'm gonna leave it there as a source. So the founding emperor of the Li dynasty was emperor title of Li, and his father's origin is kind of debated among the scholarly opinions. So Vietnamese scholars says that his father was pure Vietnamese, his mother was also pure Vietnamese, but in the historical record, they attributed his birth to the copulation between his mother and a deity. So basically, his mother slept in like a pagoda, and then like a deity, sort of like a Buddhist deity, had sexual intercourse with her, and then she got pregnant, and then she gave birth to him, which is like yeah, definitely not true. So there must be an origin for his father, but we do not know who his father is. When he became emperor, he doesn't even mention his father's name. He only crowned his fathers as Prince Hiển Kan, but what's his real name? We never know. But we might actually find the answer in the Chinese record. So, like a Chinese clan book of the Li family in the province of Fujian in like southern China. It's called the clan book of the Li family of Chuanai. Uh, it's edited in the Qing during the Qing dynasty, but it's claimed to be written during the Song dynasty, so it kind of has some more credibility to it. But in that clan record, it was mentioned that the father of Li Gongwang, or the founding emperor of the Li dynasty, was a transportation mandarin from Fujian named Li Tuanang. So Li Tuangang, or in Vietnamese it's Li Tongang, he was a transportation mandarin, sort of like a very minor officer in the imperial civil office of the later Han dynasty. And this transportation officer, he because he was stationed in Fujian, which is like which is like in the coastal area and also like in the major port. for trading between contemporary China and countries, neighboring countries in different areas. So because of that, he got the chance to move to Annam or Vietnam at the time, which was under the domain of the Southern Han Dynasty. And he married a Vietnamese woman there, and then he brought his son with him. And yeah, Lee and the founding emperor was actually born in Vietnam, but he's of half Chinese origin. His mother was Vietnamese, but his father was a Ming Chinese, a Chinese from Fujian. So the founding emperor father was from Fujian, and his grandfather, was surprisingly, according to the clan book, the chancellor of the later Qing dynasty during the five dynasties and the 10 nations period. So Li Song, the grandfather of Emperor Li Taido, he Chancellor Li Song was the highest, sort of like the highest ranking officer in the entire kingdom of later Qing. But he was later executed because he sort of like anger or annoy some political opponents, and they accused him of treason in front of the king, and he got beheaded. So his son fled to Fujian because of that, and then later fled to Vietnam. And Li Song was actually a descendant of the Tang royal dynasty, the same Tang royal dynasty that under which China reached its zenith. It's sort of like its highest point of political and cultural and economical power in the entire history of the nation. So the Tang Dynasty, the founding emperor of the Tang Dynasty, Li Tang Gaozu, had a lot of children. He had like 20, 21 different sons, and also like 30 daughters, with like I guess around 50 consorts. And his son, Emperor Taizong of Tang, also had like probably right more than that, like 30 different sons, I believe. So every single Chinese person can trace their lineage all the way back to the Tang Dynasty founding emperor because of that. Because the Tang Dynasty's founding emperor, they just produced so many children, so many offsprings, and they spread all around the world. And thanks to that, like mathematically, you can trace your descent back to the Tang Dynasty no matter where you go. You don't need to be like their like direct patrilineal descendants in order to claim descent from the Tang Dynasty. You just need to have like a Chinese ancestor somewhere in your family tree. So that's why it's not very surprising that I can trace so far my ancestry back to the Tang Dynasty. It's pretty much a proven fact in and of itself. But the thing here is that Chancellor Li Song's grandmother was a woman by the name of Lady Wei, and Lady Wei's mother was a woman by the name of Lady Li Jing, as recorded in the family clans book as well as in the new book of Tang. So Lady Li Jing was the daughter of General of Hezhong Li Qingxiang, and Li Qingxiang was a Persian Chinese Mandarin under the reign of Wu Zetian, I believe. I think it's Wu Zetian or Emperor Chongzong of Tang, either one of those two. I'm not really sure. But Li Qingxiang was the general of Hezhong, and he was a Persian in origin, but he's been heavily sort of like assimilated into Chinese culture. His father was an historian, which is like a sect of Christianity. It's also called the Church of the East. He was an historian named Li Su, and Li Su was the imperial astronomer of Emperor Kaozong of Tang. And Li Su's father, Li Chi, was I think it was the earliest sort of like Persian emissary sent to China by the exile king of Persia in the Tang Dynasty, and that he stayed there, and he was granted the surname Li of the imperial family. He just settled in Chang'an afterwards, and so this family settled in Chang'an. All of them settled in Chang'an, and all of the imperial family descendants settled in Chang'an. So they intermarried with each other, and that's how you came to this cycle of like having children of different ethnic groups all assembling in Chang'an, which is like the capital of China at the time, and it has like tons of people from all around the world settling in it thanks to the Silk Road. You have Persian, You have Tokharians, you have Turks, you have Indians, you have maybe even Russians, and there was also records of people from all the way from the Byzantine Empire, and people from the Arab Peninsula coming all from all over the world to Chang'an. And also the family, this Persian family was of nobility rank, and they were assimilated to Chinese culture, so they intermarried with the nobility, and that's how we came to this connection right here. So the imperial astronomer Li Su, his mother, was actually the daughter of the king of Persia, the king of Persia in exile, Pu Shang. So in the stele of the Lord Li's grave in Xi'an, which is like a graveyard discovered in Xi'an County, which is the location of Chang'an, the ancient capital of the Tang Dynasty. So the stele, if you read it, you can see that it mentioned Luke Li Su, the person being buried, the imperial astronomer. The imperial astronomer was the nephew of the king of Persia, and the king of Persia at the time was none other than Pushang of Persia. And Pushang of Persia was the son of Prince Narsir of Persia. So Prince Narsir of Persia was the son of Prince or King Peros III of Persia. He is the heir to the Sasanian throne in Ctesiphon in Persia. So at the time in the 7th century, Persia was already conquered by the Arabs, specifically by the Muslim Arabs. So the 7th century was also around the time when the Prophet Muhammad and his descendants waged conquest all over the Arabian Peninsula and even spanning to the entire Middle East, and they overthrew the last king of Persia, Yazdegerd III. They beheaded him, and his son, Peros III, together with his uncle Bahram, had to flee from Persia all the way across the Silk Road to China, because Persia and China at the time had a diplomatic relations. So they flee to China to seek help with Emperor Cao of Tang, like asking him for like if you guys can send in some troops for us to reconquer our motherland. But then the emperor of the Tang Dynasty, Cao and his consort Wu Zetian was very hesitant about it, so they retained the imperial family of Persia back in Chang'an, and then they sent Peros III to Tokaria, which is a region in modern day Central Asia, between just right at the crossroad between Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan. So they sent him to Tokaria, and then he was king in Tokaria nominally, and he helped the Tang Dynasty defeating the Arabs into Korea to prevent them from spreading further into China. And he was king there, like the Persian king in exile. He established court there, but he was not the king of Persia in the right sense. So then his descendants just then later migrated to more centrally, going towards Chang'an, because they cannot just stay in Tokaria, which is like a pretty much barren land. So they migrated to Chang'an in China, and their descendants intermarried with Chinese nobility, and then you just see that the Persian family gradually got mixed in with the Chinese identity, and that's how they sort of like just lost their identity along the way. But so you see here, Peros III was the son of Yazdegerd III, and Yazdegerd III was the last king of the Sasanian in Persia. And Yazdegerd III, if you trace his line all the way like 8 generations back, you go to this guy right here, Bahram V, also called the Onager, because he likes hunting onager, which is like a type of animal resembling deers, I believe, or deers, or what's that can call? Yeah, it might be yeah, just call it deers. But yeah, so Baron the Fifth was the son of Yazdegerd the First, and Yazdegerd the First had a very cordial relationship with the Rosh Hagluta, who was the head of the exile or the exilarch, who was a descendant of the King David in the biblical, in the biblical sense. The descendant of King David was exiled to Persia after the year 522 by the Assyrian kings. No, it was not the Assyrian. It was Babylonian. Yeah, it was the Babylonian king. So they were exiled to Babylon, and they settled there ever since. And then their descendants of King David, lived in Persia during the Sassanid dynasty's era. And Yazdegerd the First had a very cordial relationship with the contemporary exilarch of the Jewish community in Babylon, who was Huna the Third ben Natan, also called Rav Huna Bereya. Rav Huna Bereya the Rav Natan. All right, so Rav Huna the third had a daughter named Shushan or Shoshana. So Shoshana, she was given to Yazdegerd the First as a wife to prove like sort of like the cordial relationship between the king and the Jewish community. And the only child of their marriage is Baron the Fifth. Therefore, Baron the Fifth is a one half Jewish and one half Persian. But his like descendants later on just continue to identify as Persian because yeah, that's their patrilineal lineage. It's all Persian. But if you trace his mother's line back, Shushan and this marriage is taken from the provincial capitals of Iran, or in Farsi is Shareshtaniya Iran Shah, which is like a Middle Persian text on the late antiquity, on like the Persian geography at the time. It talks a lot about the cities founded by Sasanian kings, and in one of those passages, it mentioned like Jewish communities being founded by Shushan who was the queen of Persia and the daughter of the Exilarch and wife of King Yazdegerd I and mother of Baron V. And that's how we came across this information. And Shushan you trace the line of the Exilarch all the way back. Shushan daughter of Huna the son of Nathan son of Huna son of Ukban son of Nehemiah. You go all the way back, probably around 11 more generations, and the sources from the Seder Olam Zutta, which is like a genealogy book of the exilarchs in Babylon. You go all the way back, a bunch of generations more. Hezekiah ben Elonai, Shemaiah ben Shechaniah, Obadiah ben Arnan, Jeshaiah ben Hasadiah. So around the generations of, I believe, Hezekiah ben Elonai, which is all the way down here, is when the second temple was destroyed. And that's sort of where the point that rabbinic Judaism started to form. And go all the way back, you see Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is the governor of Yehud, Medina, or the province of Yehud, in the time of King Cyrus the Great. And Zerubbabel's father was Shealtiel. Shealtiel's father was the last king of Judah and the first exilarch in Babylon, Jehoiakim of Judah. And he built the great synagogue of Baghdad. He didn't build that. They settled in Nehardia, which is like a town, also called Anbar, in modern day Arabic, but it's actually from a Persian word that means like the granary of the barn. So they settled in Nehardia, and they established court there as like the court of the Jewish king in exile. He was the first exilarch, but he built a synagogue in Nehardia. But then later it was transferred. All of the buildings, the bricks of the original synagogue was transferred to Baghdad, and you see the great synagogue of Baghdad. So Jehoiakim, you trace his line all the way back. Jehoiakim, Josiah, Amon, Manasseh, Hezekiah, Ahaz, Jotham, Uzziah, Messiah, Jehoash, Ahaziah, Jehoram, Jehoshaphat, Asa, Abijah, Rehoboam, and you get to Solomon. And Solomon's father was obviously King David. So by this logic, from my lineage all the way back to King David will be 110th generations. That'll be his 110th descendants. And you go all the way back even more. You see Jesse, Obed, Boaz, who was the husband of Ruth, Salmon, Nashon, Aminadab, Aram, Hezron, Perez, and Judah, from the tribe of Judah, the founder of the tribe Judah, and the patriarch of the entire Jewish people nowadays. We know it. Jewish people take their name from Judah. So in Hebrew it's Yehuda, and it comes to be Yehudi and Yehudim, which is all that. And now Judah, son of Jacob, also called Israel. So Isaac, son of Abraham, Terah, Nahor, Serug, Ro, Peleg, Ever, Salah, Afrasak, Shem, and Noah. Shem is where we get the term Semitic, which means people that descend from Shem. So Semitic languages are languages that, for example, like Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic. I believe there's also another language in that page, but I don't remember its name. But those are the three main languages belong to the Semitic language family, so they are descended from Shem according to biblical genealogy. So that's why they're called Semitic languages. And Noah obviously is the guy who built a boat. He lived in Mesopotamia. And Noah, Lamech, Methuselah, Enoch, Jared, Mahalalel, Kenan, Enoch, Seth, and Adam and Eve. And then all the way to God. So in total, if you count the number of generations in this family tree, it would come up to 140 generations. So yeah, it's very fascinating. So just go to show that as long as you have enough records available to you, that you can trace the lineage all the way back, even to King David. It's entirely possible. And this is just the migratory road of my ancestor in this tree right here. I can point it out. So Abraham and generations before him lived in Mesopotamia. The Garden of Eden is also reputedly somewhere between the river Tigris and Euphrates, which is like the birthplace of the Mesopotamian civilization. The earliest known civilization in human history is Sumerian. So the Sumerian civilization was dated to around, I think, 6,000 years ago. It was like around 4,000 BC. So 4,000 BC, and Noah, Adam, Eve, maybe all the way to Abraham. All of those people lived in Mesopotamia. And Abraham specifically lived in the city of Ur, which is in southern Mesopotamia. And Abraham migrated from Ur to Israel, the promised land. God promised him that once he goes there, he's gonna be the father of a nation. So that's why he changed his name from Avram to Abraham, which is like the father of many, or the father of nations. So here he migrated to Israel. From Israel, go through three generations: Isaac, Jacob, and then Jacob 12 sons. Joseph was sold into Egypt and then became the vizier of the Pharaoh, and then he led all his family on the way from Israel to Egypt in the land of Goshen. And then four generations later, you go back to Moses, and Moses lead the people out of Egypt again. They settle in Israel once again, and Judah was given the land in southern Israel, which is somewhere above Negev, the desert Negev, but below Jerusalem. So that's where Judah settled. And then the kingdom of Judah, founded by King David, Solomon, Rehoboam. King Judah fell in around 522 BC, and descendants of the king of Judah will carry on to Nehardea in Babylon, which is over here in the middle of Iraq, no, in modern day, as Anbar. And from there, Shushandukta was given to the king Yazdegerd the First, and they settled in Ctesiphon, which is a very close distance away from Nehardea. And descendants of Yazdegerd later fled all the way to Tokaria, fleeing, asking for help from the Tang Dynasty. And then they go all the way over there. And then their descendants married into the royal family of China, which is all the way here. And then you go here, and then they change their capital from Chang'an to Luoyang. And then descendants later moved to Fujian. From Fujian, well, obviously you know the rest of the story. They go to Tonkin, and from Tonkin to present day location. So that's how this whole family tree came to be after, like, I guess it's around close to 6,000 years of formation. Yeah, 6,000 years actually, because it lived all the way from the Mesopotamia era to the modern era. So I'll say around 6,000 years. 6,000 years of formation. The oldest civilization in the world.